상제 주당 초진 천남 찬중 발도 나네 자선지 나게 신소 지배 선남지 도란 벤실 상제 주보라이쇼 상제 주당 초진 천남 찬중 발도 나네 자선지 나게 신소 지배 선남지 도란 벤실 상제 주보라이쇼 상제 주당 초진 천남 찬중 발도 나네 자선지 나게 신소 선남지 도란 벤실 상제 주보라이쇼 샘진 탐진 대화당 대변주당 덴보라 줄지 동하단 동하란지 주당 차와라 줄지 동하란 멘된 대화 담바 mendrawaran churje niren chadan nidan chave tanyam chenbola nembaran churje semjen tamjen devada deven jodan dembaran churje dongadan dongaranji jodan chawaran churje 멤베 대와 담바다 멘라와 저지 니렌 자다 니단 차베 단념 젠보라 네버란 조란지 샘젠 함젠 대와다 데벤 조단 덴보란 조지 동하단 동하란 조단 자와란 조지 동하 메베 대와 담바 멘라와란 줄지 니렌 차단 니단 차레 단양 셴보라 멘보란 줄지 도르지 page number 4 page number 4 the lineage prayer. Doji Changchen de lo na ro da marba mulan ju jing gam bo ba tu zo xie yan gun jen ga ma ba Go First, page number 12. Okay. Page number 12, 1, 2. Chang Tso Wa Tang Chu Jin Shang Ba Tang Ji Su Yi Rang Gu Jin So Yi Ge Wa Chung Zi Da Ge Ji Sa Ba Tam Ji Da Ge Chang Jo Ji Rang Ho. Now page number 10. Number 10. Second line. Sa ji fu ju ju ji me do chang ji ra lin ji ni de jin ba de san ji xin do mi de ko wa yi zhu ge nam da xin da chen ba ra shu men ra bun za men samudra samarana samaye ahum. 21, 21. Sem je nam je samba na ori je na je da wa je jon tamo te ba ye je je kordo so. Balance na maru je da ge je ga me ne je da ne je kuzo yang ro da do o ne je je na ne ya de na je ko je ma sen jo ko mo de de da ya da ne sha da cha zo tang ge do je ja je ro zo ro je je me do de je bon je ma ser je thon bo na bo je be Shaje jabe shala chanza Shojin mage kundo kara zozan jije hodajin toje jinjin todos. Jinre zela chanza Dada minje benje shaje bema dada de bumba kunden runzema Runma yunga chanza Mana ilge danu danu jinge rubum dana mi hegen ruwa gunjira geje zambur Tamje gedu da geje dendo So, all of you got the text? Okay. So now today morning we will go through this. The text, name of the text is the 8 verses of the mind training by the Geshe Lamri Thangpa. Okay, so he was the great Kadampa master. And so we will go through this. Now, so the main practice of the Kadampa tradition were very much stressed on the practice such as the mind training. And it shows the importance of training our mind. As we discussed yesterday, what we experience, it is the doing of our own action, of the past. So karma, cause and condition. Whether we experience happiness, whether we experience some kind of suffering, so it did not come about with no conditions. It did not bloom out of nowhere. So everything has a cause and condition. So accordingly, then we experience. So that way, if we sow the seed for happiness, then we experience happiness. If we sow the seed for suffering, then we experience suffering. That is very simple, cause and condition. If you want to have a very good, I don't know how difficult it is planting a salad garden. I'm planning to do this, so I have no idea. But if you want a good salad garden, you need to make all the conditions right? It's called, the salad box, the garden box or whatever. So, you have to create all those proper, whatever needed. And then put, whatever plant, salad you want, the seed you need to plant, and then water it, give it the sunlight, the warmth, everything. And if you are able to do all those conditions in the most appropriate way, and then you would get good salad, and then you can enjoy that. But if you wish to enjoy a good salad, but create a very just put the sand in the box, the salad whatever garden box, and plant some seed there, and then never water it, and never put it out in the sun, keep it that way, then you are not going to get the salad out of that. And no matter how much you wish to have a good salad out of that, you will not get it, because the conditions are not, the cause and conditions you haven't sowed. So in the same way, so everything is that way. So now we all wish to be happy. That is the most common in all of us. We wish, and we wish to be free from suffering. But because of ignorance, somehow we wish to be happy, but we do things which doesn't really give us that kind of a happiness. And even if it gives us, it is kind of temporary, not really lasting happiness. And most of the time we find that those happiness that we thought were happiness somehow turned into
problems. It became more problem out of that. So that is how in the samsara, we go in round and round, in this kind of, so then and then we are ignorant of what creates suffering, and then though we wish to be free from suffering, somehow we tend to do things which create those sufferings. So not intentionally, but because of ignorance. So we do those things, and so that way then. Now, how do we do those things? How do we create? So that is called karma. So karma we create, and through that karma, then we experience the result, and that result in terms of, as I said, happiness or suffering. And so this karma is created now through, three doors, which is the physical door, verbal door, and then mental door. So physical door means physical action, by doing physical. Verbal is by saying, things and others. So verbal, using your speech, and then mental is by, of course, mind. So thinking. So that way. So whatever we do, the karma created has to be through these three doors, or the combination of these three, doors. So now when we say that. Then if we are able to perform virtuous action through our physical door, through our the verbal action, and through our mental action, then it leads to positive karma, virtuous positive karma, and through that we experience happiness. Then on the other hand, non-virtuous actions through our physical, verbal and mental leads to a negative karma, and through that we experience suffering. So that is how karma is created. Now the physical physical and speech, it is like, we say, it is like the subject, and the mind is like the the king, or the main. Because whatever we do, whether it is physical or whether it is verbal, it is done through the thought first, the thought process. So the mind is the most important. If the mind is non-virtuous, and then even though the physical and the verbal might sound virtuous, but it is negative karma, it creates negative karma. Whereas if the mind is positive or virtuous, then even if sometimes physical might look, the physical and verbal speech might be a little bit not very soothing, might be a little bit harsh, but it leads to a positive karma, because the thought behind that is positive, virtuous. I give you an example for like a mother bringing up a child. So when the child grows a little big, likes to explore things and does many things, and then certain things the child doesn't know, could be harmful to the child. Then the mother tries to, educate the child. And sometimes when the child doesn't listen, then have to be skillful in her method. Maybe say some, express verbally in another tone, or maybe physically. Of course, nowadays it's very restricted, but in the past more. But still, physically, maybe then you restrict the child to a. I think here you practice the thing of putting the child in a corner or something, right? I don't know. Yeah, in US they do this. In India we still don't do such things. They still use proper physical action. But so you put a child in the corner and this, so that way, so physical and speech might look a little harsh, but because the mother's intention is virtuous. The mother's intention is to really help the child, to educate the child, so that the child can protect itself, become a good person, so that way, because the state of the mind is virtuous, then such action is virtuous, so it leads to positive karma. On the other hand, like if the mind is corrupted, then no matter how much the action is positive, it is a negative karma. Like many teachings say, because the teachings, this is the teachings especially for the monks and so that monks and nuns and those who are so-called sangha. It is said that we must be very careful and very mindful and aware of ourselves, because sometimes if and always be mindful of our intention, because if the intention is not right, then physically you appear to be the sangha of the Buddha, so everybody respect you like this, and then you teaching the Dharma, so then the of course the people believe you and like this, and so that way speech is very profound and very sacred. Your being presence is very sacred and profound, so it is that way seems virtue. But then if the intention or the thought is not virtuous, it is to gain fame, it is to gain control, it is to serve self-purpose instead of benefiting beings, instead of so serving the lineage means benefiting beings. What is lineage therefore? What is lineage? Lineage is the teaching of the Buddha which is kept alive, not contaminated. So that is the lineage. And why that is there? Why did Buddha manifest teaching or the Dharma? Is to liberate beings from suffering. So the lineage is the Dharma, and Dharma is there to benefit beings, to liberate beings, from suffering. So that is for the beings. So if that is corrupted, if that is not in its right place, then it is non-virtuous. So therefore it always says, in the instructions that one, especially as a practitioner, as a sangha, and then one must always examine oneself, one's mind, one's action. So must always examine, because sometimes one can get carried away, because everybody look up to you, everybody respect you, everybody hold you in high esteem because of your being a sangha, because of you teaching the Dharma like this, so only you can see yourself, others cannot see yourself. So it says, always we must be mindful and like this. So that is how. So even if your if your intentions are not correct, and then then that is non-virtuous action. So even if it looks virtuous, so and that is the most serious form of non-virtuous action. It says, the Buddha has said, and of course then other things also. So like in that way. Then the other example is so that way the mind is the most powerful, or the mind is the most important aspect of these three doors. So that way then like so if you are mentally, if you are positive, then the things that one experiences is also positive. No matter what the circumstance around you is, maybe you will be able to take the best out of that. If the state of mind is negative, then even if you have all positive conditions around you, you will not be able to experience that. You will only see the negative things out of that. For example, like during the Buddha's time, his own cousin, there was one sangha, a member who was Buddha's own cousin, so, and this he was very jealous of Buddha, so because Buddha was very of course being Buddha, then many people follow him and respect him, and like this, and then he was very jealous. And then it is, he said, and he was with Buddha throughout, and he said, I don't see anything in you except, there's a, ray, how do you say, the ray of light around you. Buddha, one of its physical manifestation as a Buddha is, there was always a light around him, like a halo or a glow. So he said, I can only see the glow around you. That's the only difference between you and me. Otherwise, I don't see anything in you that is special. So he failed to take the teachings and the benefit from the Buddha. Though he was next to the Buddha throughout. So it is like that. So if your mind is not virtuous, or if the mind is not positive, then no matter how positive the surrounding might be, you will not be able to gain out of that. But if the mind is positive, then no matter how the surrounding may be, it is a benefit to you. As we say, for a practitioner, a genuine practitioner, there's no circumstance which is negative. All negative circumstance can be a source to your practice, benefit for your practice. A good circumstance is a good, for your practice, and bad circumstance is also, good for your practice. So that way, as a practitioner, and you should be able to do that. So that way, so that is possible only through the positive state of mind, or the virtuous state of mind. So that is why then the mind is the most important. So that is why training the mind is very important. So here working with the mind. So training the mind, I don't know, the word sounds a little bit not very convincing to me, but since it is translated that way, so I feel working with the mind sounds better than training the mind. Training the mind sounds a little bit too artificial. So I don't know. You might not want to do, but you are forced to do it, right? So you train, so you are made to train. So anyways, it's the same, I guess. So here now, so as I say, then we are not trying to, we are not trying, so by doing this, working with the mind or training the mind or whatever you call it, so we are not trying to create something new or brainwash ourselves with something, that is not there. Some brainwash with some new ideas and like that, So here we are not trying to do that, that is not our purpose. Actually here we are trying to develop the clarity and, the clarity of recognizing and realizing the genuine innate quality that we all beings possess from beginningless time. That is the essence of who we are. That is our essence. So it is also called the Buddha nature. The Buddha nature, the limitless potential. So this ultimate wisdom, primordial wisdom. So that is our innate quality. That is our essence. So here, mind training means trying to and develop that. Trying to trying to realize that. So developing the clarity of realizing and recognizing this, recognizing and realizing this. So so we could actually say, purifying the mind, purifying the mind instead of training the mind. So I think that sounds better. So that's. So this very understanding gives us the hope and courage of being able to achieve this very goal, because this is our innate quality. So because it is our innate quality, we can achieve this, or we can recognize this, because it is already in us. So because of ignorance, in the moment, at the present, we are unable to recognize this. If it wasn't our innate quality, and if we had to get from somewhere else, then it is quite difficult. So, but because it is our own innate quality or nature, then it is not difficult, because that is who we really are. It's just a matter of recognizing and realizing that. So it gives, when we understand through this way, it gives us the courage, it gives us the confidence, to such practice or such realization. So now, so that way, as I said yesterday, these in the innate quality, the primordial wisdom, the Buddha nature, that is our essence. Though that is our essence, in the moment is temporarily obscured by ignorance. And because it is obscured by ignorance, we are unable to realize that, recognize that, and realize that. And because of that, then we are in the samsara. We are lost in the samsara. So something that is limitless has become limited as I. So through this, then we perceive things with our afflictive emotions. So through I develop the afflictive emotions, and through afflictive emotions that obscures us and confuses us with the things that we experience within us, around us, and everything becomes limited, everything becomes confusing, and in that confusion then we have many limitations, and we experience many limitations. But that is not the ultimate or the reality. So the reality, as I say, is perfect at all times. And because it is perfect at all times, if we learn to, or if we learn, or if we work with this mind, it is possible to experience the limitless potential, the ultimate peace, or the perfect nature of everything that is within us, that is around us. So that is how it is possible, and that is it is we can experience this because as I told you, for a person who has a lot of greed, no matter how much that person has, will always experience lack of things, so always wishing to have more and more, so never happy, is never happy. But on the other hand, the same amount of whatever a person might have, and may feel very content, and so that we're very happy, so in that sense, then it shows, that it is the mind which is, when corrupted with ignorance, is experiences and these limitations. But when the mind is in a state of positivity, and then it experiences the happiness, or the positive state of being, and that is the quality of the mind. And how do we prove that, or how an example, a very good example, is that all of us wish to be happy. None of us wish to be unhappy. So why? Because that is the quality of our mind. That is the essence of our mind. That it is positive. It is compassionate. It is loving. It is limitless. Therefore, we wish to be happy. We wish, we wish to be loved. We wish to be, and there is no limitations to that. How much ever we have happiness, we wish to have more happiness. We never say, I have had enough of happiness. We never say, I have had enough of goodness. Because there's no limitation to that. That is the quality of us. Whereas suffering, we don't wish. A little bit of suffering, we have enough of it. We don't want more. So we wish to be free from suffering immediately the moment we experience suffering. Why? Because that is not the quality of us. That is not our essence. So that very nature shows, or the attitude shows that our nature is, our essence is positive. Our essence is happiness. So that way. So here, and then for that purpose, and then when we work with our mind, and then we are able to realize or develop, this sense, and through that, and then working with the mind, recognize, and then gradually realize and manifest this quality. So here, this particular practice of the Geshe Langri Thangpa, so it is, as the name suggests, it is called eight verses, right? The 8 verses of mind training. So 8 verses is not very much, so it's just 8 verses. So it is very easy to remember, it is very easy to put into practice, and it is very easy to carry with you. Now all of you have in your mobile, so it is always with you, so you can always open up and read through, no matter where you go, our mobile is always with us, so it's very easy. So from time to time you can just reflect on it, open up, read through, and then no need to read the entire also, just one verse you can read and then reflect on it, try to put into practice that way, so you can do like this, in your life, and that will benefit you. So that way now the 8 verses of the mind training, so because this is so, it's not so much yet so profound, so I thought it would be nice to share with you this practice teaching. So that is why I decided today to go through this. So now a brief history of the author itself, the Geshe Langri Thangpa. So it is he was a great Kadamba master, so Kadamba master, and he was born in the year how do you say? I don't know how you read this. 1054. 1054. How do you read dates? I forgot. So it's, I guess it's read 1054. Yeah, so he was born during that year. And he passed away in 1123. So he lived for 69 years, around 69 years. And it's funny because in Tibet, 69 years means you have lived a full life. Nowadays, 69 is still considered young, right? So, maybe because of the altitude, because of the climate, and because of food and all that, maybe, So, I remember, when I was small, I lived with all the Tibetan, old lamas, and once you cross, 30 means you are, more or less grown up. I mean, and then if you cross 50 means you're retired. So now your life is over. So you prepare to now retire, and then for your next life. So it is considered that way. But nowadays, of course, I've met people seriously talking about living for 130, 160 years like this. At first I couldn't believe. I thought they were like I mean, all of us wish to live long, so the wishing is something, but really, really thinking that you will live that long is another thing. So I've met many people, who really think they will live, 130, 140 because of, the advancement in, the medical and all that. And, such people are above 60, 70, and, they're already planning after they retire from this job to start another job, so start another career, so they're planning like this. And they are all well-to-do people, educated, very well-to-do people. And so I was quite surprised to hear this first, they're thinking like this. But then, why not? It's possible, so that way. And then, so 69 may sound a little bit early, but according to those times, it is, well lived. It's quite a fully lived life. And most of all, of course, for him, he attained great realization in this period of time. So, and then his actual name was Dorji Singhe, but he was known as the Geshe Langri Thangpa because he was born in the place called Langri Thang, in Tibet, and then he established a monastery in that place, called the monastery was also known as the Langri Thang monastery. So then he came to be known as the Geshe. Geshe means the Gyagishini, the the realized one. So so the realized one from the Langri Thang. So Geshe Langri Thangpa he was called, and he was a great Kadamba master. And the Kadamba tradition was established in Tibet by the great master called Atisha, Atisha Digankara. So he established this tradition. And in this tradition, then the mind training, such trainings or the practices were very important practices, they practiced. And the practices such as the the lineage of the profound view and the practice of the profound view and the vast these in Tibetan is known as the Samo Tajue and Jachin Juju. I think translated as the lineage of the profound view and the vast practice. So it merged into this, and then in such tradition, then the practice of discipline and these were very very seriously observed and practiced in the mind training. And Atisha was the of course founder of such this tradition, and he was his principal disciple was a master called Drom Tenpa. And Drom Tenpa's principal disciple was the Potowa, again Geshe called Potowa. So all these were the great masters of the Kadamba tradition. And Geshe Langri Thangpa was the student of the Potowa. So he was the early masters of the this Kadamba tradition, so the Kadamba tradition. And he put down, of course, as we know, the 8 verses of the the mind training. And later on, then there was a very famous Kadamba master called Geshe Chekawa. So Chekawa is the master who put down the mind training called the 7-point mind training, which is very well known. Everybody I think knows about this mind training. It's called the 7-point mind training. The Lojong Tun Dunma, so 7-point of mind training. So this was put down by Geshe Chekawa. It is said that Geshe Chekawa, when he was a very young boy, he came across this the 8 verses of the mind training, and when he saw this, immediately he had a great connection with this, and through this, then this turned his mind towards Dharma, and then his life with the Dharma. Of course, definitely in his past lives he had connection, but in that life, then his mind was turned towards the Dharma, and his journey on the path of Dharma started when he came across this particular practice, of the the 8 verses of the mind training. And then later he became such a great master. And there are many mind training practices. So he combined all that and then made it into the 7-point mind training practice. So that is how even great masters like Chekawa, they started their Dhamma journey through the blessing of such practice. So that is it is a very profound practice. Now, so that way I sincerely hope, I sincerely pray and that today by us going through this practice will be the same for us. It would be the pith instruction to our journey to enlightenment, and through this, our journey to enlightenment is established established with firmness and with quality. Now, so coming back to the mind training. So as I told you earlier, we are training the mind to discover or develop the very innate quality or the essence. So therefore, in other words, we are training to develop our bodhicitta, which is the innate quality, the goodness or the Buddha nature. So bodhicitta. So that is, and bodhicitta is, as I said, it is the limitless loving kindness, compassion. So that is our innate quality, and it is limitless because I already told you. Through example also we know, why limitless. So it is the limitless loving kindness, compassion. Now, in doing this, and then there are 2 methods. First, training to develop the relative bodhicitta, and then secondly, to develop the ultimate bodhicitta. So bodhicitta, so here when we are doing the practice, then we train to develop relative bodhicitta, and through that develop the ultimate bodhicitta. So these 2. So so as I said, that in order to purify something, there has to be an essence, that remains after the purification process. So here, when we purify our mind, the pure essence that remains is the ultimate bodhicitta. So that is the pure essence, the ultimate bodhicitta, or the innate quality. And this is revealed or realized through the practice of the purification method, which is in this case the relative bodhicitta. So the method to realize the ultimate bodhicitta is the relative bodhicitta. So through the practice of the relative bodhicitta, we recognize and realize the ultimate bodhicitta, which is our essence, which is the Buddha nature, which is this limitless potential, the primordial wisdom. So that way, the ultimate bodhicitta is the goal of our relative bodhicitta. And ultimate bodhicitta is non-dualistic. And relative bodhicitta is dualistic. So that is why it is called relative bodhicitta. Relative bodhicitta is dualistic because we take on the sufferings of others and we give our happiness onto others, etc. So that is called the mind, the give and take Tonglen practice. So there are practices like Tonglen where you take upon oneself the sufferings, negative karma of others, and you give your positive karma happiness to others. So such practices, there are practices like that. And then there's practices of exchanging oneself with others, so, and then there are many, many practices. So they are the relative bodhicitta because there's you doing something you are giving something or thinking something, and then there is the other side there to whom you are giving or doing something, and then there is the action of doing or giving something. So it is it is relative. It is in this this cycle of relativity, and so dualistic. So therefore it is relative. So relative. So this is the dualist. And then the ultimate bodhicitta is non-dualistic, and usually its practice, the practice of the ultimate bodhicitta is done by resting in meditation. Resting in meditation in its very state of non-dual. So that is the ultimate bodhicitta. So here in the 8 verses of mind training, and then the last 2 lines of the 8th verse is the practice of the ultimate bodhicitta, and the remaining are the practice of the relative bodhicitta. And so in this particular practice. Now, if we go, so that way now we know, right? The mind training. When we say training, it means to purifying the mind. Purifying means there has to be something which is pure. Otherwise, how do you purify? So like when you wash this glass, you can have a clean glass. Why can you have a clean glass? Is because in the beginning it was clean. So because it is clean, it might be contaminated, presently with whatever you drink in it. But because the glass itself is clean, pure, then you can wash after that and get a clean glass again. If the glass itself is dirty, and then no matter how much you clean, you're not going to get clean glass. So that way, so because the mind, the essence, of us is pure, is perfect, limitless. Therefore, we can achieve that. We can realize that, we can recognize that, but temporarily, which is being obscured by our ignorance. So we can purify the ignorance because they are relative, they are not the ultimate. And so that is what now training means. So training means to purifying this, and so that way, and then doing that, the practice to do that. So this practice of doing this, purifying the mind from its from its relative temporary obscurations, then that practice to inculcate in our day-to-day life, so that so that we can realize this innate quality. So that can be termed as training. So training is getting used to that. So you could say that. Now, so that is the meaning of mind training. So now, if you come back to the text, page number 4. Okay. So the first verse. Here, the first verse says that Dani semchen tamjela yijin nurgule papi tencho dubi sambayi papa chepan zambarsho. So here it says that thinking of all sentient beings as being more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, with the intention of achieving the supreme goal, may I at all times hold them dear to my heart. So here it shows that how do we perceive others as a practitioner of the mind training, or as a practitioner of the Buddha Dharma. Then how do we look upon others as, and how do we take others as? So here so in this particular verse, this emphasizes the importance of cultivating the righteous view, or the attitude, the righteous attitude towards others. And valuing the others and cherishing their well-being. So here this stanza or the phrase verse emphasizes on that. In Tibetan we say Jin Chepar Zimba. Jin Chepar Zimba means means taking others as looking after the well-being of the others, and looking for others as more superior, or superior means more precious. So when you say superior, again people have problem. So here precious, others as more precious. And why precious? Why are others precious? Because the reason here it says because those others can give you the supreme goal. They are like the wish fulfilling gem. That is why they are precious. It is said that wish fulfilling gems are like I don't know, and there are stories where before the sailors go into the the ocean, and then they look for this wish fulfilling gem, and if they find this wish fulfilling gem, it can fulfill all their wishes. So but of course it's talking about the worldly wishes like wealth and all these kind of wishes. So it is, and there are many stories, right? So like even I think genie, genie, the bottle, right? So it's the same thing, right? So like this, there are stories, but I don't know. But again, there are beliefs, that people, why they dress well, why they have all this in the past, is because by doing that, it gives them the energy, positive energy, and that energy is able to attract, positivity, wealth, worldly magnetizing power. So it is believed, that way, and I mean, I don't know, sometimes it's very interesting, because if you look in the past, I was traveling around this time and visiting a lot of sites, historical sites, and like architecture, and many other things. And it seemed in the past everything was so precise, grand. Anything they did was full of very artistic. I mean, artistic can be in many ways, but very, how do you say, detailed. Every work is detailed. If you think about it, nowadays we have many instruments which can create much more detailed work. But somehow there was these the architecture between each other. One is the old, one is the new. You look at the old, it is so magnificent. It is a beauty, a work of beauty. And the other, the modern one next to it is just block. It is just a square block. There's nothing, just like that. So it's become like that. So that way, So, and then even the way people, dress, the way people eat, whatever, in the past were much, I think, healthier, much better. Now we are trying to go back, right? We're trying to be organic. We are trying to do many things like that, So in the West, especially when I travel, I realize many people plant their own things, eat their own natural food, which is very good, So like that, they're trying to go back to the old style, because so that way we can see, and sometimes it's very interesting, So of course everybody has their own opinion, but that way. So here now it says, so these kind of wealth or such things like these precious gems also, they can only give you kind of a temporary well-being. No matter how much wealth you have, it is temporary. At the most, first of all, you don't know how sustainable they are. In your lifespan itself, there are many who were very rich, then suddenly became, lost everything, and then, went through depression, took their lives, and, this very wealth became the source of their problem. And then there are many who had nothing, then suddenly got everything and again lost everything. So there are like that also. So there are so many. So all this, worldly material, these things are impermanent. It says, and then it cannot serve you long, purpose. Even if your entire life you enjoy all that, at the time of your passing away, you have to leave everything. You cannot take even a strand. It is like in the classical text it says, like pulling out a hair from the butter. So the hair will come out without even a small thing of butter, because the butter is very sleek and very. So the hair will come out alone, so like that. So when we pass away, then we can, no matter how much wealth we have accumulated, we cannot take even a penny of that. So that way, it is just one lifetime. Even if we are able to sustain to the maximum. It is one lifetime, and in order to achieve that, how much we have put effort, how much we have gone through, so like that, and then there are many, I've seen many cases where this very wealth, after you pass away, becomes the source of problem for the family. There's so much fighting amongst each another, so like that, it becomes so much problem, so much headache, so it says here, so those kind of things also, they are not sustainable. So but here it says Töncho Dubar. So Töncho means the supreme goal. So supreme goal is the enlightenment, the realization of the ultimate truth, the complete freedom from ignorance, and that is the ultimate goal. That is the best result, or the best, that one can achieve. And in order to achieve that, then the most, so, and that is possible through others, it says, because there are others, you have the opportunity to practice your loving kindness, compassion. Because there are others, you have the opportunity to practice your generosity. You are able to practice your, patience. You are able to practice your, discipline. You are able to practice all, the 6 paramitas. You are able to practice all that. So which is the quality through which, which are the methods or the, through which one can achieve the supreme goal. So therefore, without others, there is no way for one to practice that. There is no way for one to purify one's, one's limitations. So therefore, it says that is why then we must recognize that, and that is why others are so precious. If the others are not there, who will irritate you? So if others don't irritate you, and then how will you realize that you are still not perfect? So when others irritate you, then you are this imperfect nature of the relative nature of anger or jealousy or ego. These things arise, and when that arises, then you have the opportunity to recognize them. When you recognize them, that is the starting point. Then you can work with them. If you cannot recognize them, how do you work with them? So, and then when you can work with them, then you have the opportunity to eradicate them. So that is why it says the others are so precious. Because of this others, other beings, then one can work on oneself. One can recognize one's limitations, and through that, then one can attain the complete realization. So that is the supreme goal. Total freedom from suffering. So everlasting happiness. So therefore, others are so precious. It says. So that is the so that is how it establishes the the understanding why others are so precious, other beings, why other beings are so precious. So it says they are more precious than any worldly benefits that one may have. Now, so therefore, may I at all times hold them dear to my heart. So that is why then always respect others, always hold others very dear to you. Whether you know them, whether you don't know them, whether they irritate you, whether they make you happy, whether they make you upset, they are very precious. They make you happy, of course they are precious. They irritate you, they are even more precious. Because they help you to introduce you to who you are. So that you can work with that. So they are even more precious. So we always learn to hold them very precious to you, as a practitioner. So this is very. And if you are able to do that, then that is the best form of protection, right? We wear protection, around our neck. We have, so many protection around us, but the best protection is this. If you have that kind of a mindset, attitude, then that is the best protection that one can have. Nobody can harm you anymore after that. If they irritate you, you are fine with that because they are your precious jewel. If they are good to you, you don't need protection. So that's the best protection. So in that way, so then you can never be upset or harmed by anything. So that is why just see it works. By taking others as important. Working towards the well-being of others, respecting others. In turn, it helps you to be happy, and it helps you to be at peace. So that way you don't lose out anything. In fact, you gain the true benefit is through such. So you gain. Now the next is Kang tu sutang dropitse dani kunle men tashing jen da samba tabai chodo jepan zimbarsho. So here it says wherever I associate with whomsoever, may I see myself lower than all the others, and from the depth of my heart dearly hold others as superior. Kanto sudan dropitse dani kunde mendashing jena sambatabaye chodo jeban zimbasho. So here it this phrase trains us to when we associate with others how our attitude should be, and that is to learn to look at others in a more more precious and more superior. Again, I say the word superior can mean many things. Sometimes it's not very soothing to our ear. But that is because we have ego. That is because we have so much attachment and ego to this I. So that is the cause of all the problem, suffering to us. And then that very cause of suffering create uneasiness in in us hearing this superior, looking or perceiving others superior. So that itself shows, that the whole problem of one's suffering is because of one's own ego and one's own attachment to this I. So even the word superior creates problems for us. But if you are really able to accept the word, looking at others superior to oneself, then if you are able to really absorb that with genuineness, and then you are already free from suffering. With such ego problem, and jealousy, attachment, like that. So it is very much in its right, rightful place, the word. But then, many people are unable to do that in the beginning. So you have to use many other words. So I don't know what other words is better. So looking at others more more precious, so like that. So this is so it's like the great masters have said, that ngajabji gambula yuntenji chumicha. So like it says, that masters have said that the balloon of ego, on the balloon of ego, they can never be, it can never collect water. So balloon is round, right? So when you are, when you are bloated with ego, then they can never be, you can never absorb, wisdom. You can never absorb, quality. So because you are bloated with ego, so that way, so one, in order to be able to absorb wisdom, in order to absorb, virtuous quality, and then one must be able to, reduce and dissolve this ego. So here this practice is for that. It helps us in doing that. So here like there's a in the Shanti Devas the teaching, he says in the Chunju, he says that jiten thala tsewa khanyo tang jikan dungmal chinhe yochurba tekun dadu zimba lechuna dechen teko dada chishisha. So it means all the harms in the the universe, all the fears and sufferings one experiences, all this is brought about by the clinging onto the idea of I, and mine, and so on and so forth. So what is the use of such a great harmful evil? So if you look at it, all your problems, is created by this, this strong attachment to this I and mine, so through that you have all problems, So as I said, so then it says that, for countless lifetimes, and even in this life, if you examine, all your problems are created through this, so much self-attachment, so much, so therefore it says, what is the use of cherishing that so much, which gives you so much problem, so of course, if there's something that gives you happiness, that gives you, well-being, then we have to cherish. So when you examine this, if this I, attachment to this I, clinging on to this I, this ego, this, so if this gives you, well-being, if it frees you from suffering, then of course, we should cherish it. But when you examine it, it does the opposite. So therefore it says, what is the use of cherishing it so much? What is the use of clinging on to it so much? Rather, it says, when we learn to cherish others, it gives us happiness. It in turn benefits us. Therefore, to learning to let go of this strong self-attachment and learning to cherish others, uphold others is important. So here, that is why it says, so one, here when it is said one looks down upon oneself, doesn't mean, one is looking down inferior upon oneself, and the other is superior to oneself. It doesn't literally mean that way, because how can it mean that way? As we, and I've been telling you, and as we have been seeing, that we, all beings are Buddha by nature. Our essence is Buddha, our essence is perfect, limitless potential, is primordial wisdom. So how can we be so inferior? How can we be so, useless that way? It cannot. So with that very understanding also, so this thought of inferior should not be that way. How we normally thinking of inferior, but rather here it is, antidote to this self attachment, which is the creator of all problems. So therefore, in order to break that, so the inferior, it means that, it is the inferior is the ignorance, the afflictive emotions, which create all the problems here. So that is the inferior quality. And so, and that is these kind of inferior qualities which create all the obscurations to that genuine, genuine quality, the precious quality of us. So because of that, they are inferior, and that inferior is recognized, realized, and can be, broken down with the, with the help of the others. Therefore, the others are superior, or others are precious. And so therefore, so that is why it says, whenever we associate with anybody, so because of these reasons, taking others as a superior and taking oneself as the inferior, taking one's own place as the inferior, and then with genuineness, means with genuineness, and not just for the sake of it, but with genuine, taking others as precious, is very important. Superior is very important. That is the practice. And even when you are associating with in public, or with your friends or anything, this is very important. If you always have a attitude of self superior to others, you are never happy with anybody. Wherever you go, everybody will not like you. You will be always avoided by everybody. But if you have an attitude of always respecting others, putting others above you, and like this attitude, everybody will welcome you. Everybody will love you. Everybody will respect you. So like that. So, and then in turn, automatically, that is your quality. That, because that is the innate quality. So then that people will respect you. If you are able to shine that, and that is through this practice. Now, so here it also says that one must remember, that genuine, the loving kindness, compassion, and because when we do things, if we are not mindful, we can do it many ways. We can help somebody, but with a genuine sense of wishing to help others, because they are precious to you, they are precious to everybody. So therefore, you are helping. They are same like you, wish to be happy, wish to be free from suffering, and they are also in the samsara because lost like you through ignorance, not able to recognize or realize their innate potential. So they are lost, but in essence, they are Buddha. They are very precious. So through that kind of a genuine respect, and they are so precious, as we saw in the beginning, how they benefit, you. So with that kind of a respect, then if you help others, that is, it is said, is genuine loving kindness, compassion. When we help someone else, thinking they are inferior to you, as in, they don't have, what you have, you are better than other, and then help, then there's pity, the word pity. So that is the difference, it says. So if one is not careful with that, then what happens is, by doing such action, if one is not mindful, it can feed your ego. It can feed your, again, negative side. It says, you are doing like that, the mind. So this is mind training. So we have to always be mindful of the mind, state of the mind. So if we are not careful, we might do something, but that in turn, if it feeds our ego, if it feeds these kind of things, then it is not working in the right way. So when we are doing something, we must make sure it doesn't feed our ego. It breaks our ego. It breaks our negative qualities. And it develops a positive quality. So that is very important to be mindful of, it says. Now the next Cholam kundu rangju la ta jin nyumon jema ta jen da jen marun shepe na zentab donne dobrsho. So, for example, again, when we like say teacher and student, when a student receives teaching or advice from a teacher, automatically the student's mind is attuned to thinking, that he or she knows less than the teacher. So that way, then you don't have that, the ego or such. Then you are able to receive the teachings or the education from the teacher, the knowledge from the teacher. That is how you develop your knowledge. But if you think the other side is inferior to you, less than you, then no matter what the other person tries to teach you, or you will not be able to absorb it because you already think you know more. So that is how it is. And you don't have a problem. Like teacher, when advises you or says something, you don't have a problem with it. You are happy to receive it. Because you don't have the ego in you. You don't have these kind of things. So that is how. So if our nature or if our quality is such, then everything around us can be a teacher. Everything around us can be a source of knowledge for us. We can progress every moment. Every time we can progress. But if we have ego in us, then everything around us, we stop there. The moment we have ego, we stop there. There's no more progress in us because we are unable to absorb anything around us because of our ego. So that is why to break the ego is so important. So ego doesn't have much benefit to us. So it only stops us from growing. Therefore it says so. That's an example. Now the next cholam kundu rangjo la ta jin yomon chema tha daje marum shebe na centab donne dobrsho. So here now it says that how do we act with our body, speech and mind, or how do we when in situations. So it says that in all my activities, by examining my mental continuum, and as soon as afflictive emotions arise, which are what's this next word? I'm not sure. Pernicious to self and others, may I forcefully confront and avert them. So here, as I said, all this cholam kundu means in all my activities. So activities such as whether you are alone, or whether you are with somebody in presence of people, or whether you are while eating, sleeping, so whatever, whatever so in such circumstances, Kundurangjuna, all the time it says, at all times, one must be mindful, examining, aware, with awareness and mindfulness, one must examine oneself all the time. And if you are mindful, and if you are always mindful and aware, then you will recognize or see, that when an afflictive emotion arises, you will be able to recognize or realize. If you are not mindful, then you will get carried away by it. Like yesterday we saw, if you are out of the river, you can see the river. If you jump into the river, you get carried away by the river. So same way, if you are mindful all the time and watch yourself, if you are aware, then you will see that when afflictive emotions arise, you will be able to catch them. You will be able to see them. But if you are not mindful that way, if you don't examine yourself all the time, then you get carried away all the time, and then you get carried away, and then you are confused in that, and then you experience, unwanted experiences. So therefore, being mindful at all point. Mindful means always watching yourself, always, watching the mind. So examining my mental continuum. So always, as I say, physical action and verbal speech comes through mind. From the state of the mind. So therefore, if one is able to watch the mind, state of mind, then one can avert the limitations of the physical and verbal action. So therefore, here it stresses on the mind. In and then it says that when one sees an afflictive emotion arise, then one must immediately counteract that. Because if one doesn't counteract that immediately, then what happens is it gains strength. And when it gains strength, then it is very difficult to counteract it. It becomes a habit basically. So when it becomes a habit, then it is difficult to overcome. The more the habit, the more difficult it becomes. When it is new, it is easy to overcome. So when you have, supposing, immediate, some kind of ego, you see immediately, you reflect on the teaching and say, ego is no good for me. It only brings confusion, only brings, self-destruction through this. So immediately tackle that. Or if anger arises or hatred arises, immediately tackle that. And as I told you yesterday, now there are so many ways of tackling it. Through analytical reasoning, you can tackle. Like that time we saw. That if all these are the, our afflictive emotions, and they are the cause for all our problems and sufferings. Till now. So what is the use of entertaining them? So through these kind of, analytical, meditation or analytical reasoning, one should immediately tackle them. Or, as I said yesterday, when you have a strong emotion of anger, then instead of reacting to that immediately look, sit back, and then watch that from far. Instead of jumping into that, sit back and watch that, and then just watch the very essence of this anger itself. Just rest in that, and then rest in the essence of the anger itself, and it has nowhere but to dissolve into the emptiness, because it is empty of such. So that is directly tackling, immediately tackling. And when you dissolve that, then rest in that, and then gradually again, so that way. So one time you might be able to do a little bit, and again when you come out of that, again it over, you start again connecting with it through your illusion, and then it gives you again another problem that way. But at least you saw it and you tried. Second time it might be a little better. Third time it will be better. Fourth time, then gradually that always trying again and again. First time you will not be successful. Second time not successful. Third time not very successful. But we are going on trying. When we are going on trying, we will experience it. And then gradually, then that when you rest in that, and when it dissolves into the emptiness, then you will be able to maintain that. And then that anger will not be able to affect you anymore like that. So anymore doesn't mean no more anger forever. Because as long as we are dualistic, as long as we have this I, there will be some. But the effect of it will be much less. And then when the effect is much less, the reaction to it will be less. When there's less reaction to it, then the result is less. And when the result is less, means less suffering. So that way, so we tackle that way. One time we do a little bit, it helps us. First time when you do, we rest. First time it becomes difficult to even rest in this very, nature of anger, because your mind will be, trying to overtake, illusions will keep coming. But the trying part is important. Then second time, maybe same. Third time, the try will be better. You will be able to rest, but for a very short moment. Again after that it will be overtaken by your illusion, but that is better. At least you tried and you are able to rest for a moment. Then the moment will become longer. Then gradually you will be able to do at one time. Maybe not all the time, but sometimes you will be able to. Then gradually more times. Then gradually, all the time you will be able to, do. Anger might come, but then whenever it comes, when you do such practice, you will be able to do it. So that so gradually you will improve that way. So that is, and that is only possible if you recognize it immediately. So if you recognize it immediately, you can, practice the antidote to it. So therefore here it says, and how do you recognize it? By being mindful. How do you be mindful? By watching your mind all the time. So that is the practice. Yeah. So it says, "Chunam kunduram jula tajin yomong chimata daje marun shepena chentab dongne toparsho." So all activities by examining your mental continuum. So that because all activities arise with the state of the mind. If the state of mind is positive, the action is positive. If the state of mind is negative, the action is negative. So therefore always examining that. And whenever there is a non-virtuous or the negative action, immediately antidote to that, practice antidote to that. And if there is a positive action, in the same way you rejoice in that. You rejoice and then try to do more. Try to establish that even further. Now, there's a story, since we are doing the Kadamba teaching. There was a Kadamba master, and he had a sponsor, so who used to visit him from time to time, and then because in Tibet, before you have to provide your own food, the monastery doesn't provide you food, your own clothes, your own things, you have to provide for yourself. So he had a sponsor who used to provide him, with his food and this, and then I think the sponsor from time to time used to come and visit him, and then one day, this Kadamba master, he fell off to sleep, late in the morning, and that day it seems his sponsor was coming to visit him, and suddenly when he woke up, he realized that it was time for his sponsor to arrive, and then he didn't have much time, and then his bed wasn't made, he was, still asleep, his altar, he hadn't, cleaned and put up the offerings in the morning, and that. Then he quickly got up, and immediately, folded his bed and everything, and then, made the offerings, and then went into his meditation box and stayed like as though he has been meditating for a long time, and waiting for a sponsor. And as he was doing that, suddenly it struck him, that he wasn't doing this, he was just sleeping till now, and then, this is just an act, that he put up, just to please the sponsor, so he was so, so then he immediately said, this is not how it should be. Then he got up and then he sprayed, like a handful of dust over all the offerings, and then he laid back his, sleeping bedding, and then he went back to sleep, so, and then that is how they practiced, so always mindful, not trying to brainwash others, so that, so they were always practicing this way. And it is said that the Kadamba masters, always in the evening also, they used to fold everything, put their bowls, everything upside down, and act like they will not, think that they will not wake up again, that is their last breath that they're taking, so that is impermanence practice. So every day they were, whatever they did to the full, the full ability, to the best ability that they, and not leaving anything behind for tomorrow, next time. So that way, they used to sleep thinking that is their last breath, and practice to the full whatever they could. So like that, so these masters were like that. Whatever they did in complete with mindfulness and awareness. So that is how they practiced. Now, the next is the Rangjin Nimbisim Jini Digdu Tabu Nguyen Tong Se Rinchen Terdang Trebajin Niebar Kawi Jinsen Shu. So here it says When I see beings with unwholesome nature, afflicted with grave sins and suffering, like finding precious treasures, and may I dearly cherish them as if they are hard to find. So here it teaches us how to cherish those who have inferior qualities, inferior qualities. Those Rangjin Ngempi Semche means those who have unwholesome nature, which means those beings with strong afflictive emotions, with strong anger, with strong jealousy, with strong, such beings, so with these, afflictive emotions. So it says, so like this phrase, it particularly emphasizes for the practice of bodhicitta, and the important principle of having special concerns for the underprivileged, needy, so those beings who are in need. So your compassion should be even stronger for such beings, it says, that so this is the practice of compassion, loving kindness, so it says that even those beings who are of inferior qualities, such as with strong jealousy, strong anger, strong ego, and these kind of things. So it says Rangjin Ngempi Semche ne digdu thampu nen thongse digdu. So through such emotions, afflictive emotions, as I said, then they create negative karma. When they create negative karma, then they experience suffering. So they experience unwanted experiences. As I say, everybody is one is a master of oneself. So what you do will ripen on you. What you do will not ripen on someone else. What someone else does will not ripen on you. So if you wish to be happy, you need to create the cause and condition for happiness. If you, so that way, so here, so that way, beings of inferior qualities with strong jealousy, anger, these kind of afflictive emotions, then they create negative karma, and through that negative karma, they experience, suffering, and because they create, non-virtuous, they create negative karma, non-virtue, through non-virtuous action, digdu, tabu, nentong. So, and then when you see such beings, then it says, then they should be like, it says finding a precious treasure. Why? Because they give you the opportunity to practice your loving kindness, compassion. As I said, yesterday, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara is also known as the mother or the father of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Why? Because Avalokiteshvara is the embodiment of loving kindness, compassion, limitless loving kindness, compassion. And without limitless loving kindness, compassion, one cannot attain complete enlightenment. Because that is the innate quality or nature of of us and everything around us. So therefore, in order to recognize and realize the innate quality and the limitless potential, then the limitless loving kindness, compassion is a must, without which is impossible. So therefore, here who helps us to practice that is those beings of such inferior nature or quality. So those who have such inferior attitude, then they really give us the opportunity to practice patience. They really give us the opportunity to practice loving kindness, compassion. So if everybody around us is good, always pleasing us, always saying nice things about us, and like that, then we are always happy, and we don't, and we know we are, not completely enlightened. So we are not perfect at all times. We very much know that if we are honest to ourselves, so then, but when everybody around us is always praising us, being nice to us, and like this, then our limitations are not being tested. And so when that is not done, then we are always in a comfort zone. When we are always in our comfort zone, then there's no development. Like in everything, right? So even in your work, if you don't get, if you don't get challenged, you will not improve in your work. Even in physical, exercise, the same, right? There's a thing called plateau. You reach a point where if you keep doing the same thing all the time, then after some time it becomes easy. You don't develop after that. Then you have to, you have to surprise yourself, with extra whatever weights or whatever you do. So that way then you improve. You move to the next level. So even with art, even with whatever you do, it's like that. So same way, so even in this, if there's nobody who will test your such nature, then there's no development, there's no space for development. So therefore beings of such strong afflictive emotions, and they really create all the conditions for you to manifest your limitations. And when that happens, then you have all the opportunities to recognize them and work on them. And when you have an opportunity to recognize them and work on them, then you can develop. You can improve. You can purify them. So therefore it says Rinpoche. Therefore they are the most precious treasure. Because of that they are precious. Therefore then cherish them, with high regard. That you have found such a precious gem. And then in the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva, I think Jasilale. So there's a phrase which says, in the middle of a crowd of people, someone reveals your hidden faults and abuses you for them. And then to see such a person as a spiritual friend and to bow with respect is the practice of a Bodhisattva. So as a Bodhisattva you practice that way. Someone who brings out the fault of you in front of others, and normally we are very upset, and then that becomes, you make sure that you will, you will wait for the right moment to hit back, So as a Bodhisattva, as a practitioner, one should not do that, it says, because they're very precious to you, through their action you are able to, see the faults of yours. So you must even more cherish them as a Bodhisattva and then respect them, and then be grateful to them, it says, so that. Now the next, the fifth, it says, Dara Jenji Tadoki, Shegur Lasso Miripi, Chonka Rangi Lembata, Jaka Shendan Bulorsho. Now, when others out of jealousy wrongly disparage and slander me, and etc., may I take upon myself the defeat and respectfully offer victory to them. So that is also the same. So this this verse shows the importance of cultivating patience and endurance, etc. When one faces challenges coming from others, So this is more difficult than the previous practice, because in the previous practice you are associating with others who are having difficulties. then it is a source for your practice towards them, your loving kindness, compassion, like that. But this time, in this phase, it goes even more further by saying that when they harm you, when they, directly harm you, then how do you practice? Then you practice by, looking up to them and like this. So this is normally more difficult, so to practice. But then, so of course one stanza above the other, so that way. And so dala jinji thado ki shekur na so mirikbi. So shekur, she means, shishe dama. So yelling. Yelling and abusing and like this, shishe, and like, to think. Kur means, kurdi means like, and then, how do you say, like, kurvatapa. Kurvatapa means saying, disparaging, saying bad things about you, and mean things, bad things about you, So shishe is directly in front of you, from front, challenging you, harming you, hurting you, like this, so yelling, abusing you, yelling you directly in front. And Kruvatapa is from behind, you're not knowing, but, with saying things about you, spreading rumors about you, and these things, So ones who directly, challenge you, or from behind, do things like that, So Shekulla, so Mirikbi. So beings who do such things, chonka, and then one must learn to take whatever whatever they do, learn to practice with patience and with endurance. As we say, truth always is true. So no matter how much they spread lies or whatever, the truth will always come out, and what is the truth. So as long as you're honest to yourself, as long as you're true to yourself, then there's no need to be so upset about things. If you are not true to yourself, then of course. So if you haven't done right, then if people are saying things, then you have to work on that. There's no space for you to get upset because you haven't done the right thing. So you should naturally accept that and work on that, and be working on that. But even if you haven't done anything wrong and people say such things, then there isn't need to react or get so upset because you know the truth. So, and the truth is the truth, no matter what. So you should, there's in Tibetan there's a saying, you should be as firm as a mountain. So if you are as firm as a mountain, nothing can shake you. So if you always get shaken up and down with little things, then you are like a paper, blown away. Or you will always be blown from here to there. You will never find stability. So you should be like a mountain. No matter what, as long as you are true to yourself, you are, right. Then there's no need to be so upset and by things that is around you. But here, as a practitioner of the Buddha Dharma and the Bodhisattva practitioner, or the practitioner of the Lojong, the mind training, then it doesn't say just be and just that is enough. It doesn't say that. It says you have to go one step further. How do you go one step further? Is by saying Chonka Ranginemba. You should take all the you should accept whatever, all that, because, accept all that now doesn't mean, as I said, accepting, the false without reasoning. Accepting here, as I said, if you have done something wrong, then accepting that and then, working with that. If you haven't done anything wrong, accepting as in knowing that you haven't done anything wrong, so, there's nothing to be ashamed of, but accepting whatever they say, not retaliating to that, and still further practicing your patience, and practicing your, so that way further developing your loving kindness, compassion, with that. If you react to that, then, it is not a practitioner. So Shindu Chonga Rangi Nambada, Jaka Shena Babasho, so that way. So here Here again, sometimes there's a little confusion. That they are unable to wrongly disparage and slander oneself. May I take upon myself the defeat. So as a Buddhist practitioner or as a practitioner of the Buddha Dharma, one must practice with wisdom. And we say method and wisdom. The method of loving kindness, compassion, and then the thap and shirap wisdom of the emptiness. But emptiness here means the wisdom. So how do we do that now? As I said, our we practice with genuine loving kindness, compassion. Loving kindness, compassion is to benefit other beings, not to harm other beings. So when you do that, whatever action you do that with wisdom. So if somebody is truly harming you physically or whatever, then here it means as a practitioner you shouldn't retaliate to that by doing the same back. Then you are same as that person. So you are creating negative karma, which is no good for yourself, no good for others. But rather than that, also it doesn't mean you should take all that upon yourself. Like if somebody is coming to kill you, say I'm a bodhisattva and then that person killed you and and not doing anything. It doesn't mean that. That is no wisdom. Because if you let that happen, that person is creating very big negative karma. By taking your life. So you are trying to help that person. How do you help that person? By making that person make a even bigger negative karma. So no. You have to find all the possibility ways to run away. Find a way to disappear. So that is what it means. It doesn't mean you should try and counter that person by killing that person back. Or by trying to harm that person. So here it means we have to use our wisdom. To make sure that that person doesn't create further negative karma. And in doing that, whatever possible you should do, you should do. So that is how one must. So here one must understand this. When it says, may I take upon myself the defeat. So you should do this with wisdom. So not word to word. That is very important. Otherwise, some people have this confusion, and they think, why should I take all the harm, and then let others take advantage of me like that? So no, you have to be mindful, and with wisdom you have to act. So making sure you don't harm that person, in reality, and harm that person by letting that person create negative karma. In the same way, you don't create negative karma by your action. And you should, build your loving kindness, compassion, so through your act. So that is how this practice, it refers to that. When you say, that may I take upon myself the defeat and respectfully offer victory to others. So you are offering victory to others by not letting them create a negative karma also. So now the next is time. Oh, it's time. So we'll continue this later. Okay, with this, and then I'll teach you another thing. Okay? So we are on the sixth stanza, right? So you remember that, okay? Right. Okay, now we'll do the dedication. Page 32. Okay. Page number 32. Sonam de Pamje Zibani Tomni Nib Danam Pamje Jega Naji Balap Chubai Sibe Tsole Joan Sho Jamba Bao Chedar Chemba Kundo Zambo Teyang Tejin Te Teda Kunji Jis Dalhoji Gewa Deda Tamji Rabdo Ho Gewa De Jeo Kun Sunam Yeshe Tsozo Ne Sunam Yeshe Dechung Tamba Guni Tobrajo Om Banzar Sado Samaya Manu Palaya Banzar Sado Dinoma Tita Dido Memba Suto Kayo Memba Subujayo Memba Anurado Memba Sarva Siddhi Metrayaza Sarvakam Sujame Zirdam Shiriya Guru Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tatha Gada Banzar Ma Munza Banzar Ba Mahasamaya Sado